I've given you all of this. I've poured out my life for you.
Am I just chopped liver? Or, wait a sec, is it possible that they may be experiencing love differently than I am?
Welcome to Feel Known and Be Known in Enneagram Conversation podcast. I'm Laurel.
And I'm Katrina.
This podcast is all about the Enneagram. So grab a drink, maybe a pen and paper. We're going to dive into what is the Enneagram, what it's good for, and we'll hear from people who use it in their everyday lives. The other day, we were talking about parenting in the context of ourselves, types 8 and 9.
I was talking about my challenges as a type 8 of not being in control of the outcomes of kids who are still learning how to sleep and how to take their own risks, and how that can be a trigger for me as a parent.
My challengers were wanting to keep everybody harmonious, keep everybody together, connected.
The amoeba.
The amoeba, yes, I talked about being an amoeba.
So if you want to hear more about our different styles of parenting, we are in different stages of parenting, but you can learn all about that on episode 2. But we are going to talk about the other types a little bit more now. And maybe you can identify yourself in one of these parenting types, and maybe you can't. That's okay too. But we'll do more of a deep dive into each of these types.
So type 1 is known as the perfectionist. They like things to be planned. They like things to be done the right way. They like structure as well. And that creates for them safety and security. They're very sensitive to any sort of disorder. No chaos, right? Just in order. So they're really great at providing structure and at knowing the best methods, the right way to get the best outcomes. They're able to give a lot of support to their kids and to their whole family, and in knowing what expectations are, what's coming up. Things in the family are kept in a nice order and structure.
Okay, so these might be the moms with the label makers or the color-coded calendar that takes up an entire wall.
Exactly. I've heard that they really like color-coding calendars. There was somebody recently who said she had it all written on her calendar, but then the calendar was wrong for some reason. The schedule changed. It was unthinkable for her to make the changes on the calendar because that would mean crossing things out and that would look messy. So what she did was just told her family not to look at the calendar. She said, use only the digital calendar.
I can understand. I cannot relate, but I can maybe understand.
And that's the goal. The goal is to say, okay, I see where you're coming from, even if it's not the way I do it. That's what builds compassion for other people and for ourselves.
And I'm still just realizing not everybody sees the world the way I do, which honestly, mind blown. I realize that more and more, and I still fall into that trap. I was like, how does not everybody see this the same way?
When the type 1 struggles too, they can struggle with feelings of guilt because they're not doing something the right way. I was speaking to somebody recently who made some changes. She was feeling taken advantage of. She was feeling that the expectations for her to do were too much, that she was doing too much. So she said, I'm just not going to do that anymore. And there was some pushback, but eventually things fell into place that the other partner then started doing those things. And then her response was guilt for having disrupted the equilibrium in the family. Ones can move then to type 7. That's their security point. And this is for them a real important move to be able to make. They go on holiday. They let go of all of the structure no, they don't. They let go of the expectations. They let go of the rigidity. They plan out the holiday, but they plan fun. So they become much more lighthearted, more fun.
Okay, they're not as rigid.
Yeah. There's more there. We didn't really talk about how they can be critical. Can be a part of it too. They can become overcritical in a family. So that's why they need the break. They need to be able to get away on holiday and have fun. They say,
no, I'm not critical. It just needs to be right.
Exactly.
Well, that's the critical spirit coming out.
To everybody else.
Right.
Right?
It is critical.
To the type 1, it's not critical. That is helping somebody improve.
Right. So therefore, you're doing everyone a favor.
You're doing a favor. You're actually showing love.
And we are thankful for that. We
Yeah.
need you in our lives.
Yes.
And we need you to realize that can be seen as very critical and judgmental
Yeah. It can
when you're
feel that
trying
way.
so hard not to be judgmental or
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah. So there's a lot of care that needs to be taken there.
Type 2.
So type 2s they're the giver, they're the helper. They're often considered the typical mom. I put that in air quotes, right? I think of an Italian mama who's giving, who's feeding, who's making sure everybody comes home for dinner. There's always food. Don't forget to eat. Always lots of food, lots of love, care. Whatever you need, I've got it for you.
Right. Smells fresh, baked, good,
Yeah.
chili. Okay.
Exactly. The type 2 is giving of themselves. They're sacrificial. They're always helping to meet the needs. They're maybe giving hugs. They're giving whatever the love is, the language that the family needs. That's what they're giving. No need is ever too much because they're happy to give. Now, that may even feel a bit of smothering, depending on the child or on the person that they're giving to, if they're giving to the
Right.
partner, right? So this can be, if you've got, say, a type 5 child who needs to be able to withdraw and needs to be able to have their own space, it can feel they're being smothered by their type 2 mom who just wants to love them.
Like literally smothered by a big bear hug.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or the type 2 father, it shows up a little less smothering because you've got your cultural stereotypes of
Masculine versus feminine
exactly.
energies are a little bit different.
You can also see that in the parents. So that what the problem can be is that the parent is giving and unconsciously perhaps expecting something back. They're expecting a certain level of love back, a certain level of care back for them. In response, I've given you all of this. I've poured out my life for you. I need you to love me back and to be committed to me.
Right.
And always giving back to me.
Or else, am I just chopped liver to you?
And so that sense of resentment can grow, but it's buried underneath and come out more as a feeling of manipulation, of making other people, making you love me because I'm giving you all of this, making you love me.
Right. And therefore you need me.
So that sense of resentment about feeling taken advantage of can really play into all of that.
Okay. That can be hard.
Yes.
The type 3 parent, what might that look like and what might be their challenges?
So the type 3 parent is going to externally look successful. They're the most likely to be looking the most put together. They have the babies dressed in really cute outfits. They'll have the trendy stroller. The whole family will look the perfect family. Most of that is true. They really are. They're the ones who really are putting everybody together that way. They're sending the kids to the best school. They've got latest lunchbox, the best snacks. They've got the kids in all the different after-school activities, everything that will create something successful for their family. They want to be successful and look successful, but they also truly want their kids to succeed. So if a child is in a situation where they're a different type who doesn't care so much about success, it can be real strain on the parent. They want to lift that child up and move them into a successful life.
Okay. So this might be the high school push to apply for university, even though they really just want to be an artist. They don't want to be an engineer.
Right. It can be challenging then if the kids aren't following along with the image created by the parent for them.
So in that case, would the type 3 parent not feel successful, even though they look successful?
Correct. They will struggle with feelings of failure, of not even what am I doing wrong, but what's wrong with them. I really give them the best. How come they don't want to take what I'm giving them? Don't they see that what I'm offering and what I'm suggesting for them is the best way? And in many cases, the parent is right. It is the best way.
Right. They have that ability to be able to tell that very well.
Yeah. And this is the most efficient way to get to that best scenario.
Right.
But
not everyone's all about efficiency.
Right.
Or to what cost.
Exactly.
If they feel a child is not meeting their standard of success, does that mean their whole facade unravels or not necessarily?
Well, it depends on the parent, of course, and how much work they're doing on themselves. If they're aware and seeing that this is one of their challenges, then they can work on their issues themselves and not necessarily apply it to their children. Just like each of us, right? We have a tendency to get stuck in our stuff. And when we're working on it, we can mitigate some of that.
And we have the same arguments and the same conversations until we realize that, oh, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
What about the type 4 as a parent?
So type 4s are the type that is the most open to emotions of all kinds. The highs, the lows, preferably not the in-betweens. They prefer things not to be mundane. They like things to be really deep and meaningful. Sometimes those day-to-day emotions are boring, right? Day-to-day life is boring. And they can get caught there. They're comfortable with the drama, so they don't have a problem with that. But when things become dull, that's where they start to idealize other people. They start to envy other people's relationships or other people's families. And they'll say, how come our family doesn't look theirs? They're going on this big fancy trip. How come our family is stuck here with the reality of tight finances or sick parents or sick family members, right? We don't want to be stuck here. I want what they have. I want to have what they have, which is more ideal.
So they can either be really excited that they're the ones going on the trip, or they can be really depressed or envious.
Envy. The day-to-day life can be challenging because it seems boring. So they're really great when the children have all of those big emotions. They're really great at staying with the child and listening and talking through whatever's going on or handling the door slamming, that kind of stuff. But actually, they can get stuck in that and they want to really dig in and learn about the emotions. And the kids may not really want to do that.
They want to get past
They want to get past
the door.
it. The type 4 may not be able to move on past something. They can get stuck in dwelling in the emotion, not being able to find a solution and move forward.
So what would that look like? A 4-year-old slams a door and he's ready to get over it. He feels better. But as a type 4 parent, how would they linger on that?
So the type 4 parent may want to then talk about it. Are you still sad? Why are you sad? Are you still angry? That's okay. Can we spend more time talking about this? And the child may just be like, no, I relieved all my tension by slamming the door. I want to go play. It may be that it shows up more readily in older children and teenagers because the parent really wants to focus in on how they're doing. And the teenager doesn't want to. As a 4-year-old, it's possible that they're less likely to get caught because the kids do move on so quickly.
Right, their attention span is quite limited.
Yeah, but in those early years, there certainly is the mundane aspect of dirty diapers and having lunch again, feeding again, and more dirty diapers and more cleanup, and now it's bath time, and now it's time. Where's the ideal beauty in that? There isn't always.
And sometimes that's the beauty of it.
Sometimes, and so often that's how a 4 will reframe it. They'll talk about the beauty in the dirt aspect, like where can you find the beauty in the ugly? The other struggle that an Enneagram 4 will have is that they're not necessarily able to withdraw. Type 4s need to withdraw to re-energize. They need to withdraw to think and process all these emotions that they have. And you can't necessarily do that in parenting because parenting can be very intense.
24/7.
Yeah, it just never stops. So that can be a challenge as well for a type 4. Also, if we're transitioning to type 5, that's a big problem for type 5s. The need to withdraw, the need to have their own space, to think through things. Type 5s are not emotional on the outside. They're not externally emotional. They have lots of emotions, of course. They process them internally, but they don't get caught up in the drama of them the way type 4s do. They often feel that the world comes at them too much and too quickly. They like to have a reserve, or they like to protect themselves, their physical energy, their emotional energy.
I've heard you describe it as using up 10 units of energy.
Right. The example I used was, or the example I made up, was that they wake up in the morning. They wake up in the morning with 10 units of energy, and that's all they've got for the day. So they feel that they have to manage that to make sure that they don't run out, that they're not depleted, right? They don't go into negative numbers before the day runs out. The next day, they start with 10. That's it.
So we use the example of a child slamming the door.
First of all, that may bother their nervous system, right? They're hearing a very sensitive nervous system. So that
Okay,
may
fair enough.
actually be too loud for a type 5. They may not be able to even process physically that level of stimulus.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's one thing. They know cognitively how to handle that situation, how to develop a relationship with the child and strengthen the relationship, because they'll understand systems, they'll understand theories. As a parent, they will automatically start to develop all of the knowledge that they need, like to have the knowledge base that they need.
So they're reading the
They'll
book.
read all the books, they'll listen to the stuff, they'll do the studying that they need in order to be properly equipped and prepared, because that knowledge base, that head information makes them feel safe enough to be able to move forward with parenting.
Okay.
But parenting, of course, isn't always tidy like that.
Right.
You have to interact with real humans. And humans aren't
Right.
tidy, right?
It is a lived experience.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's where the problem is, or can be. So
Right.
the benefit for a 5 is that they're able to disengage the emotion from the facts. So they can
That is a
listen.
skill.
Yeah. So they can listen to, people in their lives who are over dramatizing things, and they can say, let's just look at the facts,
Right.
which can make them seem cold, potentially, depending on the child that they're talking to,
Right.
or it can make them feel stable and secure, depending on the person that they're
Right.
interacting with. So,
Yes, I could see that, because if, say, the child is super distraught and the parent's just sitting there like a rock,
yeah,
I see you're angry at blah, 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 but they have no emotional response to that. That may seem very, what's the word I'm looking for?
well, it can seem,
Unrelational,
right,
perhaps.
right, yeah. Or it can seem like, oh, good, I don't have to deal with your emotions. The child can be saying, I don't have to
Right.
deal with your emotions when I'm still trying to process my own emotions.
Right. You are safe. You can handle.
Yeah.
You can handle my big feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an interesting perspective.
And then the type 6 as a parent.
Yeah. So type 6 as a parent, we're laughing a little bit because we're both married to type 6s, and I have type 6s in my family as well, or in my children. Some of them are 6s. So there are some interesting viewpoints. Type 6 as a parent can really be in control and confident. They've already thought through all the worst case scenarios, and they've troubleshooted problems and troubleshooted solutions. So they can really be a safe harbor for their children because they're competent. They know how to respond in a crisis. They know how to give love because they're all about making sure that people are okay and are cared for. So there can be real stability. They also like structure, similar to a type 1. It can look a different way sometimes, but it's similar in that need for structure. And they don't like change. So especially in the early years, that is really beneficial for babies to have, and for young children to have things always the same. And there's a consistency, and kids can really thrive in that environment.
Right.
There can be problems because the type 6 doesn't like to take risks. And sometimes, financial risks, for example, or the risk of a new opportunity. So whether it's a job change or going on holiday when maybe there isn't enough money, but there should be a break, right? So there needs to be a creativity in how they can take breaks when they need to, which they can do. They just need to know the parameters of what's
Okay.
allowed for them or what's best for them to do.
I'm having a hard time commenting. I almost wonder if my dad is a type 6
Okay.
and my husband, but it's hard for me to know which examples to pull in.
And, this is such a great example of how real this is in our lives and how learning of the Enneagram can really help, because we live these situations with our parents, with our spouses,
Right.
with our siblings, with our children. So it can feel very close to our hearts and really hard for us to separate what's just the fact of this situation and what are my family triggers that are making me reactive.
Right. Sometimes it is hard to know exactly what to share with you all, and that would be helpful.
I would never work through in this kind of a public sphere, right? Because as a type 9, I'm a little more reserved generally.
Right. And I am fairly open. I would tend to be known as the oversharer. My husband would as well, and he knows that we are doing this podcast, and I can say with some degree of confidence that he is okay if I give certain examples. I can resonate with the type 6 wanting to know security. So I think of my dad. He worked for years at the same job. Same thing, day after day after day, our whole childhood. And when my parents became empty nesters, he takes the risk and goes back to school, becomes completely commission-based. I said, "Oh, well, Dad, this isn't how I knew you to be." He said, "Well, I couldn't take that risk when I was raising 5 kids."
But now he's not responsible for the family in the same way.
Right.
So
So
he's
now
able to.
he's taking all those risks.
So it is interesting how that weight of responsibility really impacts a type 6. That's a theme that you hear.
Right. And
across all
always
of
made
them.
sure we were well cared for. And my husband, he's great at that. So much so that I tell him it's a little smothering sometimes. I am okay. You don't need to ask me in 20 different ways.
It's right.
But you can tell that, and that's his way of showing love as well. Are you okay? Are you safe? What more do you need?
Exactly.
That being said, I should go pick up my son from the bus stop. My husband will be like, "Where are you? Don't you know what time to pick him up?" I do need to pause right now. We'll catch you on the flip side. And we are back after a bit of a break. And so now we're going to talk about type 7 as parents. So Laura, what would type 7s as parents look like?
7s can be a lot of fun. They can be people who really like to have adventures and go on holidays, and they've got fun ideas. And so kids can be really drawn to them. Kids and all of their friends, right? The house might become like a party house or like just a gathering place of all the friends of the kids. They're really fun as parents, especially when they're healthy, because then they are able to regulate and sort of moderate some of the real fun stuff with some of the harder times in parenting, because parenting isn't always all fun. And that can be difficult for a type 7 if they really want to be looking for new adventures and looking for excitement, but having to stay in the drudgery of the day or whatever is happening, right? If their kids are struggling with something and they have to be the parent who's helping them process some of those harder emotions. I've heard 7s, he's in this place with his child, and the child's going through this really, really, really hard time. And the parent was like, and we were there for, I think it was like an hour talking about this stuff, this hard stuff. And when his partner said, actually, it was 3 minutes. And that was just the intensity that he felt, the difficulty that he felt in staying in this hard place with the child, felt to him that much longer than it actually was. That's one of the challenges, is learning how to stay present to some of those really hard things that show up in parenting.
Right. Okay. That would be like staying in a downward dog for more than 3 minutes. That would feel like forever for me.
Right. I have another friend who's a type 7, and she's the one that people, like, their home really is the place where all the people go to, right? So it's always full of joy and laughter. But she's also really able to go into the hard stuff. Her family went through a really challenging time, and it deepened her. And so now she's actually able really well to sit with other people in their stuff and in their challenges. She also throws in jokes and laughter and keeps the conversation hopping. So there isn't a whole lot of time necessarily. But when you just say, no, actually, I need to keep talking about this, she is able to come back, right? So it is something that 7s can learn.
Right.
And they can really then be the people who bring the lightness and the joy to family situations, as well as being able to sit with the stuff when they need to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Do you want to tell us about type 8s?
Type 8 as a parent, what does that look like? We've talked in a different episode about the difference between protection versus control. And as an 8 myself, I think I blur those lines quite often. For instance, my son goes on the bus and I'm wondering if my son is being pushed. I think, oh, well, I need to protect my kid.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? Am I going to give him the language to stand up for himself? Or am I going to be our mom bear and go after,
Right.
not even go after, but tackle this with such intensity that it's scary to even my child. Like, oh, I just told mom this. I don't know what the right answer is. And I'm still learning to be a parent,
Yeah.
right? And I'm still learning that my strength is control and it's also my intensity.
Right.
So I guess that's how I would think it translates to parenting and to carry that carefully. Or the sledding example, am I being protective or am I being controlling?
Mm-hmm.
And how does my kid see
And
it?
you're referring there to the story you told the other day about letting your son go down the hill and taking the jumps.
Yes. Yes. So my son really wanted to go down this toboggan hill only if he could hit the jumps. I was a little concerned for his safety. And in that moment, I realized, am I actually being controlling or am I actually protective? And I think that's a more difficult topic too. I still am his parent and still do have to protect him, and I get it, he would see that as controlling, not protective.
Right. Now, so thank you for sharing your perspective. So that I appreciate you being open about that. Thank you. I've heard other people talk about, like, as children of a type 8 parent, feeling the security that comes from that, knowing that their parents always got their back, that there's always that behind them, helping them and supporting them along, so that they always feel encouraged and pushed to excel, to reach their highest potential, but also feeling safe to be caught if something happens and if they fall.
Thank you for bringing me the strong characteristics. And I truly hope that's what my sons do sense and do feel.
And in any of these, no matter what type we are, right, we all need to be doing our work toward becoming a healthier version of ourselves. So whether we're whatever type, right, always knowing that we're aware of our actions as much as we're able to be, and we're learning how to deepen that awareness, and we're learning to question what we do. Are my actions beneficial? Are my actions harming? Should I be doing something different? I think really what our kids want is our presence, right? They want us to be there with them in whatever is happening. And whether you're a type 8 or a type 2 or 9 or whatever, right?
Right. Would presence maybe look different coming from a type 9, who maybe physical presence, maybe knowing I have his back instead of me being physically there. Does that make any sense?
And in one sense that you may not know until he's old enough to talk about it. And he may not know until he's old enough to process it. Right? But what he wants from you, like what every child wants from their parent, is to be seen and soothed and secure in their parents' love, regardless of what it looks like. As a type 9, type 9s in general like to like things to be calm and peaceful. So their homes are peaceful, calm, routine kinds of places, right? They can be structured. There's a pattern, and it's the consistency of the same thing all the time, every day, right? That happens. 9s generally are present because they understand the different perspectives of all people, right? They're able to be aware of what's happening, what's going on in the child's life, because they're able to understand where the child is coming from. And they really want to sort of see and hear and understand their child. The challenges can come from being tired, getting overwhelmed easily, similar to 5 in this way, where the constancy of having to be a parent can be overwhelming and can, like, you just get to the end of the day and you're done. But then there's still nighttime, right? When babies are getting up. So then you're running into the next day without any sleep and without a chance to withdraw and to step back and take that break that you need. And so that is one thing that nines need to learn to be aware of, is that, oh, I actually do need to take a break. I do need to get away. And so figuring out how to do that, whether it's going for walks, finding a babysitter, and getting out on their own. I used to just go in the shower, just, this is my time, right? Or go for a nap, like actually literally hide away in my bed.
That's awesome that
Yeah.
you were able to recognize that. And doing that, I think you were showing up for yourself and for your kids.
Yeah.
Truly, like, this is important, and mom needs to take care of herself. And
Yeah.
did you often take a nap in that time?
I often did take a nap. In
Okay.
fact, as long as I had kids in the house, I would nap every day. 10 minutes, not necessarily long naps, but
Sure.
it would just be a way of, I just need to shut down.
Resetting.
And a
even.
resetting.
Interesting. I wish I had that ability. Like, even today, my mom came over to watch over my 10-month-old, so you don't have him as a co-host today. And she's like, oh, why don't you take a nap? Because I'd been up since 4:30. I was like, I would love to, but I won't feel refreshed after that. My day's already started. The waves are already happening. I can't just pause the force and then get up and go again. I feel behind already.
Interesting.
And I'm not sure why. I wonder if that's a personality thing, or
Probably,
if some people actually can take power naps and some people can't.
That's interesting. I know that I've always thought I'd take after my dad, who does power naps really well.
Okay.
He's a type 4, probably, and also a medical doctor. So he learned how to take power naps, I think, in med school.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That was probably very important.
Interesting. So I wonder if there are types who take naps and types who don't.
I wondered too.
Yeah.
And even, well, my husband, a type 6, he would love to take naps.
Yeah, mine does too.
And they're both type 6s.
both,
Is that a thing? That would be interesting. Well, I think we've covered the main types and how they show up as parents. Of course, we can always go into wings and levels of integration and disintegration, or whatever you call it. But that's kind of a baseline. And we will see you on the next episode of the Feel Known and Be Known podcast with Laura and Katrina. Thank you again for listening.